Bhupen, start.
Good evening, namaskar, adab. Warm welcome to another edition of your favorite show, Dr. Bhupen. As I've been doing over these last few days, I first want to thank all of you for consistently supporting us with this feedback. It's your encouragement and the kind of content you want to see, which is really keeping us going. As I welcome Yashovardhan Azad, one of the foremost bureaucrats in the country, as well as Charanjot Singh, Talk to Bhupen wants to be with you. We want to talk to you, we want to have a conversation with you, and we want to take your questions to all the guests who join us on a daily basis. It's a very special show today because we want to look specifically at this question that what is it that is really challenging us as far as policy making and economy is concerned? Is it social stigma and not really social distancing, which is the biggest problem right now as we speak? Everyone wants to know, are we in already for lockdown 3.0? Is that what is staring at us in our faces? There was a meeting that was chaired by the Prime Minister today, which was attended by all chief ministers. And it appears to be a case where all chief ministers want this lockdown to be extended. Exactly how will this move forward? If we are in for lockdown 3.0, then what happens to our economy and how are we ever going to come back to state of normalcy? That is what we want to know on the show. Big interview coming up in a short while from now. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, Executive Chairperson, the founder of Biocon, one of the foremost biotech companies in India. She'll be in a conversation with us in a short while from now. And she's got some very, very important points to make. But I want to first up begin straight away with Yashoji and Charanjit. Charanjit is the former president of the Chartered Accountants Association of India. There are some specific questions that we need to look out for. And frankly, if you're an Indian citizen, folks, if you are watching that drama which is unfolding around you, of some anchor being interrogated and some community being pitched against the other, you're wasting your time. This is the question that you really need to look out for, because it's not the interrogation of the anchor which will help you in your day-to-day life. It's not a community being pitted against the other which will help you. It is the answer to this question which will help you. And it will help you understand what's going to happen to you, what will happen to you near and dear ones. Are we looking at lockdown 3.0? That's big question number one. Big question number two, exactly how will we survive this lockdown 3.0? If chief ministers don't want an opening up of India's economy, can India really be split up between a red zone, which is the most dangerous territory, between an orange zone, maybe where there is less danger, and a green zone, maybe where there is absolutely no cause of concern? Why are we thinking in terms of lockdown 3.0? Question number three, should states with lesser impact of COVID-19 be opened up for business? There is no other way, folks. Many people have come on this program and they've said that you cannot have a scenario where your cure is worse than the disease itself. Are we moving in that dangerous direction? That's big question number three. And big question number four, if you really want to win the hearts and minds and triumph in some way over sentiments, should a limited amount of air travel and train travel be allowed? These are the four questions which we'll be putting up to Yashoji and Charanjit. Yashoji, straight away, let me begin with you. It appears that there will be some kind of lockdown 3.0, maybe with some flexibility, maybe with some ability of inner city, inner state travel, but lockdown 3.0 is coming. It's staring at us. We said this here on this platform, and it's very clear that it's staring at us. Let me take the first question, or the second question that we raised, Yashoji. Do you think it's possible for us to break this country into, say, different zones? One zone operates, one zone does not operate. Is the bureaucracy geared up for that? Is there political will according to you?
I think it's going to be extremely difficult, Bhupen, because you're absolutely right. There is a palpable feeling that the chief ministers of the states want to play it very, very safe. I mean, that is the word I would use to say that the lockdown should continue. And they think that somehow they'll survive through this lockdown, because they understand that the capabilities of the healthcare system is not up to an increase in the numbers. And that is the basic issue, why they don't want anything of this. Secondly, as you said, COVID-19 has somehow emerged as a kind of a stigma for people who get it. And that's why they're very, very scared about the numbers. You see that certain states like West Bengal have gone through an elaborate exercise to say that, no, it is not 52, it is 17. So that concern which you have flagged is extremely right, that many chief ministers want to play it safe and they want to continue the lockdown. But now I want to bring to you the points which have come in your panel discussions earlier also, that in the entire country, there are districts which have been marked where many cases have not come up in the last 14 days. There are many districts which have continued to grow as hotspots, sometimes in Maharashtra. And there are certain districts where normal activities can continue because nothing has actually happened. So I think the lockdown, if you continue again after the economy will somehow collapse. And people who are stuck in various places, whether it's migrants because they are not getting jobs, merely shoving in food to them is not important. You see some of the shelters in Delhi where they need their mobile to be charged. They need some sanitation. They need some clothes. There are so many other things which you need. Therefore, certain amount of travel, as you're saying, will have to be allowed. You can't.
So you say that you need to have some relaxations. Let me take that point.
Yes.
Let me take that point with Charan Joji.
Sure.
Now, Charan, since yesterday, sir, the buzz has been that you need to figure a way out to help in kickstarting of this economy, of the economy story. So, Charanji, what I really want to understand from you is this, that we keep raising this question of economy, but it's taxing the super rich, which is being spoken about. Story gets denied, but it's not as if the story is not being spoken about. Is a one-time cess a possible solution? Is taxing the super rich the possible solution? What could be a solution, firstly, for the government to arm itself up with a better coffer of money so that it can spend on the kind of challenges that Yashoji and I are talking about?
Bhupendra, I'd like to put across one very candid observation.
Sir.
The entire economy is in tendons. There are problems. It is not at all picking up. And with closure of businesses and businesses asked to pay salaries, there is no cash flow. If you have to take money from somebody, he sits under the guise of COVID, and when you have to pay at least minimal expenses. Therefore, somehow the economy has to open up. The businesses have to start. I was reading through an article where the person had a very different thought process. The person said that government has taught us enough. But the government will not keep us captives. It is on up now. Now we understand social distancing. We understand the issues related to sanitization. So maybe they give us a relaxation, not in writing, but otherwise maybe they go slow on people who want to move. Because work has hampered a lot. And if we do not start working, say in a month or so, all of us will not be able to work in times to again, or if we work, it will take a lot of gestation period. Taxing the super, there are very diverse views on this. Taxing the super, if you feel, they say foreign companies put a percentage of cess for people who are about 10 lakh rupees, you have to put tax to them. Highest tax slab can raise from 30% to 40% for earnings above 1 crore. There are some people are saying that let us reinforce wealth tax where the assets or net worth is more than 5 crores. So ultimately, the only issue that starts working is that they want to have a 4% cess on COVID relief where taxable income is more than 10%. So this has created a lot of confusion. Thankfully, the CBDT has stepped in, saying that they have nothing to do with it. But we have to very seriously ponder how we could set up a system when the economy starts moving. That's the question. And therefore, some source of money, some source of liquidity. Look at Reserve Bank, it is trying its hard. They have cut down the repo rate. They are buying papers to give money in the system. Banks are flush with funds, but any equitable institution would not go and give money in such troubled times. So clear-cut guidance needs to emerge how things will open. They have to open up ultimately if we have to survive. But looking at the dangerous COVID-19 situation also, we need to find a middle way under legislation so that people who want to do business are able to do business with a free mind. Bhupenji, should I?
Please continue.
There is a very beautiful status also till the time Bhupenji resumes. It says that a total of just 128 people have filed returns on salaries of rupees 1 crore and above. The total income is rupees 1.51 lakh per crore. The income tax department has given about individuals. They also say that there is also one saying that the government should propose to start Give It Up campaign where super rich and those willing to give at least one tax subsidy, deduction or concession. For example, a individual may be asked to forego his 80G concession, tax concession. This can also be done. And more importantly, somebody came with a different idea amongst the IRS officers only. They said that COVID savings certificates for investments up to rupees 2.5 lakhs with a 5-year lock-in period as tax saving regime. So what they intend, they want to put across various measures where money come out. This is what the government also wants. This is what all want. That if money and liquidity comes, look at the stock markets, they have been battered. The reason is very simple, that money is not there which can be used. Yes, Mr. Bhupen.
Yeah, no, I was, I'm looking at this graphic, sir. I'm looking at this graphic and I'm trying to understand that if, when we are talking about, taxing the super rich, look at the number of people. Now, can this really be a solution? Can this really be a solution that, well, you should be taxing people who are earning this money over 1 crore. Now, look at the maths which has been done by our team. The truth is that the number of people who are earning this kind of money is anyways limited.
Very limited, very limited.
So therefore, I'm saying even the suggestion which has been made, isn't that a rather appalling suggestion to be considered at this point of time? Chiranjeev.
Sir, in my opinion, to briefly put it across, if it is a tax which is on turnover, a minimal amount, or whatever you transact, then it will be equitable because all across from the section you can derive money. But if you put on to super rich, whatever you collect would be very meager. It won't solve the purpose which is required. People have donated generously in PM Care Fund and to the Chief Minister funds. And they are not flush of funds now. So they may also find difficulties in catering these demands if they come into by way of legislation. So now, in my opinion, if turnover tax is there. Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. Let's just stay with this graphic for a moment. Yashoji, there are other things that I can think of. The truth is that over the last 4 years, since 2016 end, we have consistently been told that we are moving towards some kind of a formalized economy process. Now, please tell me, is the biggest challenge in terms of moving towards that formalized economy process exactly not this? Because if you were a formal economy and if you indeed had taken concrete steps, then you wouldn't be thinking in terms of putting on a move like this. Where are we on that that big commitment of moving towards some kind of a formal economy?
You're absolutely right. In 2014, I think the growth rate of the GDP was around 7%. And the whole idea was to bring because we survive a lot on the unregulated economy. And the idea was that more and more unregulated economy would be formalized and it'll come into the formal economy. But anyway, when the demonetization came, it completely smashed the unregulated economy. And we weren't able to even widen the tax base, which should be the actual solution of raising or sourcing more money because of political reasons or whatever. You can see that the agriculture tax can never be even talked about in this country, whereas even the economists and some of the income tax people are saying that you can tax them as per the agricultural holdings. Secondly, even the traders have not been brought into the system and they hardly pay any tax. And right now, I don't understand. You have to throw in money from wherever. For example, there was a great dispute between the finance ministry and the RBI over the release of the reserve fund. You remember 50,000 crores which are released, and now it has about 7 lakh crores. This is a time to throw in money because, as the gentleman said earlier, my co-panelist, this is a time when even by giving loans, people are scared at what kind of loans will you give. Because today is the time when the MSMEs have to be encouraged. You know, these small industries have to be encouraged, but the loans are very, very difficult to be given. And therefore, the government has to come up front. There are many things like, you know, that the LTGs, they can be stopped, but these are very small kind of measures. You have to start now. Many of the post-COVID, the whole administration should change. In fact, many of the government departments you don't even need. There are many things we should start on a disinvestment plan. The other thing which I want to say is that the post 3 May scenario, if you don't allow a little bit of travel, whether it's by bus, whether it's by air, I think you are looking into a very, very kind of a bleak future. And therefore, it is essential that you have to start opening up. Delhi, for example, you have 94 containment zones. You have already divided into red, orange, and green. And therefore, the red areas, the system can continue. For example, I don't understand why the excise shops were not opened in the states. They're talking about their revenue. In fact, Punjab Chief Minister talked about it also. These are little things which could have been thought about. Therefore, I agree. It's time to go.
There are a lot of questions which are coming actually on my Facebook page as well as on my Twitter page. And Nitin Gupta is logging into this broadcast all the way from the United States of America. And you know, Charanji, what he's saying? Nitin is saying that government of India at this stage only and only needs to think in terms of bringing the economy back, print more currency. So rather than the conversation being how to bring in more money through tax or through cess, let's print more money. Do you think, Charanji, that's a valid argument to make?
Sir, I'll give you a layman's argument. Let us speak a layman's argument, then we'll come on a professional argument. Sir, okay. The government has, for example, 100 rupees in the economy. Now it puts 100 more. So automatically all people who have money are taxed 50%. I hope you appreciate. 100 rupees are there in the economy. From my side, I print 100 and give them in the market. So automatically the prices will go high and the person having 100 will have the market value of 50 rupees. But this is not the solution. If this had been the solution, then worldwide there was no issue. You have to coax people, you have to motivate people to come and be a part of the economy. Till how many times will we keep on pinching?
Charanji, that's the point I'm making. And I put the next slide, and it actually explains to us where the problem is. The problem is that a country of 121 crore people just does not have enough people paying taxes.
Yes, this is the basic problem. You're correct.
Now, we are not talking about it. But you see, the thing is that even at this stage, I'm saying if the government was engaging with citizens and if you were told, I'll give you a straight example. Look at this figure. And this figure tells you very, very clearly what the problem is with the line of thinking right now. The total tax which is being paid by this target group, this people who earn 1 crore and above. The total tax which is payable right now is 433 crores. You say you move from 30% bracket to 40% bracket.
So what was the difference?
What is the difference? But now let me put it the other way, Charanji. I did some research and I found out in the context of this argument which is being made in this slide, the truth is that if the central government was to think in terms of, say, tackling the subsidy which is put on urea or the subsidy which is put on fertilizer, the government may well have been in a far better position. So my point is, are we really missing the wood for the trees? Are we even thinking in the right direction right now to deal with the economic crisis, Charanji?
I 100% agree, Mr. Bhupendra. You are on the right point. We are not finding actual ways. You said very right way. Mr. Azad also said the right thing, that if excise shops had opened, we have to first ensure that money starts coming in. We have even deferred GST till 30th of June. TDS also be given for 30th is the last date of TDS for the entire March. So government will come into crisis of money. Vishwas se Vishwas tak. This scheme was one of the flagship schemes where all pending litigations.
Right.
I sat in your studio when the budget came, if you remember. At that time, this was a very welcome thing. The government has fine-tuned it even better. So what I suggest, the government has to first put all its efforts in giving such a viable methods rather than even if you tax 30 to 40%, 400 crores is 120 crores, 30% is 120. If you pay it 40%, then it is 160 to 40 crores. Nothing big at today's time. If you go on to turnover-based tax, a little one for 3 or 6 months, or if you open up excise or open up industries or cut down the subsidies that are given to agricultural sector, this will image more money than what is expected.
That's a whole hassle. That's a whole hassle that we are not thinking in the right direction. Final question,
Yes.
Yashoji, before Kiran Majumdar-Shaw joins us. Explain to me, Yashoji, are we still tackling this problem politically? Are we still not in a position to figure out what would be the road ahead for economic revival, Yashoji?
I think you're right, because as my co-panelist has rightly said, that many of these things have fallen into the political realm. You know, subsidies on urea, subsidies, there's so many subsidies which could be cut down, but because of political reasons, it cannot be done. You know, opening up the excise shops, the whole attitude today, it appears, is somehow to see that the number of COVID cases should not be high, and the economy, somehow this trade-off is becoming very, very dangerous for the country. And today I feel that the entire focus is only on managing the lockdown, and that's why you see the maximum number of chief ministers are thinking of continuing the lockdown. And later on, they think that perhaps the dole from the center is going to bring them out of their economic issues, which is a very, very unfortunate right now.
So what we hear from both of you, as I thank both of you for joining us, is that the government, from an economic framework, is not on the right path. It needs to look for long-term solutions. If the poor and downtrodden people in this country have to be helped, well, the kind of subsidies which exist in various sectors, political subsidies, political arguments, they need to be settled. If everything has to be a new normal, well, we may as well be ready for this new normal to start by targeting those areas which nobody has spoken about, which is, what are you doing to the agriculture sector? What are the kind of subsidies? What's the kind of losses you incur? Almost 1 lakh crore. Almost 1 lakh crore. That's what you're talking about. That's the kind of money that you can target if you start looking at that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Well, tomorrow,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow, there's going to be a special program at 5 p.m. You all can join me. I'll be joined by the topmost stakeholders in the business of education. Akash Chaudhary, Dr. Asim Chauhan will be there with us to talk about the implications of what we are going through, the education mess, the stakeholders, from parents to students to business houses. How do you adapt yourself to this digital way of thinking, to this digital world from an offline world, is what we'll be looking at tomorrow. That comes up at 5 p.m. We'll play that at 8 o'clock as well. But if you have any questions, there is a link there. I'll put that link on all my social media streams. It's my invitation only. Any one of you watching this broadcast, you want to be a part of that broadcast, well, you're more than welcome. Let's now play this interview. A short while back, I did manage to catch up with Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, the executive director of Biocon, at what she makes out of the arguments that we've raised so far. Good evening, namaskar, adab. Warm welcome to a special edition of Talk to Bhupen. This is where big newsmakers and stakeholders drop in to tell us exactly where we are in, frankly, the biggest story of our times. Great pleasure for me to be hosting Ms. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, the founder, the chairperson, and I must say one of the strongest voices on multiple issues in India. The Biocon boss is here with us. Kiranji, warm welcome. Hope you're safe and sound.
Thank you very much, Bhupen. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, well, I don't know, when we'll ever come back to the normalcy of seeing each other in the physical space, in the physical world. But this is
soon, I hope.
I hope so too. Let me straight away begin first by asking you, Kiranji, look at what has happened today. The Prime Minister has held a meeting, one of the series of meetings. Today he met chief ministers. Now, word coming out from that meeting is that as many as 8 chief ministers today are asking for an extension of this lockdown. Are we really in a position, Kiranji, according to you, where we can be from lockdown 1.0 to 2.0 and now 3.0? Do you think we're ready for that?
We can't afford 3.0, Bhupen, because I think we are beginning to hurt in terms of the economy. And I personally believe that when we look at what also the Prime Minister has said today, that he says that the only places we really need to worry about are the red containment zones. I think he is completely right in that, because I think if you look at India, India is not one homogeneous country. India is a country with many states. Each state has its own ethnicity. And when you talk about ethnicity, it also has its own genetics, genomics, that will also make it respond to the virus in a different way. There is also the economic levels of different states, in terms of the affluence levels or the poverty levels. You've got the disease burden to think about, and so on and so forth. So we are a very diverse country. That is why you're likely to see hotspots, you're likely to see green zones, you're likely to see amber zones. And I think really this is about using the last several weeks that we've spent in the lockdown, understand the risk, to assess the risk, and to manage the risk. I think that's what it's all about. So the first thing was about understanding the risk, and understanding the risk was about mapping out the zoning of the pandemic in terms of the impact of the viral spread. So that's how these red zones, amber zones, and green zones were arrived at. And I think what many states have learned to do extremely well, and this is a template being used all over the country, is to absolutely seal off the red zones or the red hotspots. Now, even in a city like Mumbai and Delhi, which have got the largest number of deaths, you're seeing that these are sort of happening in very dense spots. It's happening in certain places. It's not across the city. So I think you need to start looking at economic activity linked to these red zones and red.
Possible, Kiranji, let me put it this way: is it really possible? Say, for instance, I'm in Uttarakhand right now. There may be parts of Uttarakhand which would have been impacted by this virus. Do you think we have that kind of bureaucratic mechanism where we say we're going to shut down one part of a state and we're going to completely open up, let's say, 3 or 4 other parts of the state? Do we have that kind of mechanism?
I think we do have it, because I think in Karnataka, for instance, even in the very city of Bangalore, we've managed to actually identify the real hotspots within Bangalore. And I can tell you they've sealed off those places, whether it's little housing developments, whether it is particular areas, whether it is apartment blocks, they managed to do that. And what they are doing very smartly is to avoid those hotspots, even when it comes to traffic and logistics. So you can do it. And today with technology, we are having this Zoom call, okay? And I think with technology, you can do much of this. I think first and foremost, they have done mapping very well. I think you need to have surveillance and safeguards when you open up. So when you lift the lockdown, which we can't afford to extend anymore, I think you must manage the risk. So I think surveillance is a way of managing the risk. Look for those outbreaks. And also, Bhupen, what I want to tell you, I don't think we should get worried about the positive cases. Right now, we're focusing a lot on the positive cases. What we should really be worried about is the severity and the fatality of coronavirus.
But how do you get a sense, Kiranji, that actually the problem right now is that it's a, politically speaking, it's a very, very tough call to be made. Now, as the city of Mumbai, look at the Maharashtra Chief Minister, Uddhav Thackeray, is clear that he does not want to, end this lockdown in Pune, in Mumbai. Are you getting this sense that maybe politically it is becoming too much of a hot potato? Nobody wants to take this risk of what will happen if there was to be a second wave of this?
No, I think Maharashtra and Mumbai in particular, they really have to contain the virus. Okay, it's very clear that Dharavi has become a huge problem for Mumbai, and there are a few hotspots in Maharashtra which they need to look after. But other than that, there are many parts of Maharashtra that can be opened up, and I think this is where I feel that governments must be far more pragmatic about opening up the economy than they are right now. You can never have zero risk, Bhupen. You can never have a situation in the near future where you say they will not have a single outbreak, nobody will turn positive. That's unrealistic. I think you must not worry about positive cases. In fact, I would go so far as to say, let there be a surge in positive cases as long as they all recover. As long as they all recover, you start building up herd mentality. In India, we have a young demographic population.
So what is it about, Kiranji? Is it about social stigma? Is it about social stigma?
Yes,
Because everywhere around me, I see that, isko ye ho gaya. Look at COVID. Suddenly it's as if that it's some surreal world that you have suddenly entered, and nobody wants to be seen anywhere near any person who's been hit by COVID, even if that person has recovered.
So that's the tragedy. We've created such a social stigma about coronavirus positive cases that now nobody wants to test positive. And those who actually test positive want to run away and hide and don't want to present themselves to even the hospitals. This is becoming a very serious problem. And I think we must destigmatize positive testing in the coronavirus COVID-19 case. I think we must destigmatize it, because otherwise it is going to be a very dangerous situation that we're going to be in, because people are treating all these people like untouchables, which is really bad. So I really think there's a serious problem. Today, people who test positive, families don't want them to return home even after they are negative in testing. People don't want to deal with them. I'm told even vegetable vendors don't want to sell vegetables to people who have had coronavirus. And even delivery boys don't want to service apartments where there were coronavirus positive patients who have now recovered. So this is becoming a very, very, difficult social stigma which we must get rid of.
What do we then do? Because what is now coming quite clear, it's absolutely clear that large parts of India are not going to be in a position in which they can reverse this lockdown 2.0. Look at this report which was submitted by a group of IRS officers. The feeling is that the government of India needs to come up with some out-of-box solution to work out a fund which can then help the cause of the poor and downtrodden. How do you deal with that question, Kiranji?
No, I certainly believe the poor and the downtrodden certainly need help. I also believe the small and medium industries need a lot of help. And finally, of course, even the large industries, many of whom are going to be impacted for a long time, also need a package to help them through this very bad crisis. So I personally believe the government has to be thinking. I mean, today, for instance, we saw a 50,000 crore liquidity fund being announced by RBI to help with the mutual fund crisis. But, let's face it, the financial markets are not going to pay salaries and they are not going to buy goods and services. This is just to appease the flight of capital that might happen if such, if such mutual funds are at risk. But I think more importantly, first we have to address the stigma, and I really hope that our Prime Minister is the only person who can calm people down in terms of removing the social stigma.
But ma'am, the numbers which have just been released by the government, just as I'm speaking to you, this number has come in. 60 deaths have been recorded in the last 24 hours. Now, 60 deaths recorded in the last 24 hours is the highest number of deaths which has been recorded in a single day. Do you think the Prime Minister's hand today, frankly, is just completely tied? I mean, damn if you do, damn if you don't. What does he do?
No, but Bhupen, 60 deaths across a country like India with 1.3 billion people is not such a huge number. Okay, let's not dramatize it and exaggerate the impact of this virus. Okay, I'm just trying to say, let's put it into context. We are a large country. Yeah, of the 60 deaths, let's see where it has happened. Has it happened in every part? Has every state reported the same number of surge in deaths? No. Some parts have and some parts haven't. I know in Karnataka we have 19 deaths to now. For a state of the size of Karnataka, that is a very good piece of statistic. Similar is the case in Kerala. Similar is the case like, Goa has not had any deaths. So I think you're seeing that in different parts of the country, there is a set of statistics that you need to definitely rely on.
Will this entire move, Kiranji, will this entire crisis also not maybe push the government's decision makers, the policy makers, the financial minds of this country to actually really start taking concrete steps towards formalization of the economy? I mean, I look at numbers, the number of taxpayers, the number of people who are giving tax, still in a country of 1.21 billion people, I mean, less than 10%. For last 4 years, we've been told that we are moving towards greater formalization of the economy. Is that the biggest handicap today before the government?
See, today we have a number of handicaps, and that's actually come to the fore during this crisis. One is the regulatory reforms that we need, because we are still working in a very archaic kind of regulatory environment. We know that we have to reduce transaction costs. That can only come down if you have regulatory reforms. There was a huge move towards self-governance, but that still hasn't happened in the way it should, right? We also know that for the economic revival, India has to start doing that sooner than later. And I, for one, believe that we should actually start looking at the growth centers in our country and see, can those be opened first? I know, for instance, I know, for instance, say, for instance, the IT hubs. These are fairly secure places. We know that most of these people have been working remotely. Are these hubs and, can actually start opening up faster? There are pharmaceutical hubs. These are all happening in large campuses. Can we not get many of these start moving? Whatever industry can open up through surveillance and safeguards, we must open them up. Then we come to the mom and pop stores. Can we allow them to open? In fact, many of them are opened up. So then we need to focus on the logistics, the kind of other services that are delivered to people. Are those the kind of services you can open up and start getting the economy moving? Because I can tell you, if you keep it down, I mean, someone was mentioning, I think it was Sujit Bhalla and Virmani. Yeah, they actually came out with analysis.
Yes.
Projecting that 2 months lockdown will result in a almost 10% reduction in GDP. So that's not a very good thing. And we're going to lose millions of jobs. So, we have to get the economy back on track. And I think we need to do it very judiciously. We need to link it with risk assessment. And I think there's enough of risk understanding and, risk management that can be done and open up the economy in that way.
All right, Kiranji, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, namaskar, adab. Warm welcome. Well, that's it then. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Well, till then, stay safe, stay well. What we want out of you is that you should be safe, that whatever you do, as this buzz continues about whether there is going to be an extension of this lockdown or not, what we can certainly report at this stage is that this lockdown is here to stay for some time. How are you going to look after your own interest? Well, you need to be here on Talk to Bhupen platform. To all of you, thank you so much for watching.